Let's go, baby. What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome to more C4. We are reacting just a couple minutes ago. The Eagles, in overtime, defeat the Buffalo Bills 37-34, going to 10-1 on the season. First team in the NFL to secure a playoff spot, and what a performance. Jalen Hurts was terrible in the first half and a little bit in the second half. Terrible. And then to close the game out, oh yeah, he's an MVP candidate. Played like an MVP candidate. What a game. What a game. Like my kid, I let my kid stay up past his bedtime. Like, you have to come downstairs. We got to watch this as a family. You're my good luck charm. And in overtime, man, that run by Jalen Hurts, that was insane. That was absolutely an insane game. A game that I don't think Buffalo deserved to win because of how they finished that game. Fourth quarter and overtime, Buffalo, they choked. They lost this one. But Buffalo should have won this game. They should have won this game. Josh Allen was very good outside of one Carson Wentz drive where he threw a terrible interception. And I mean, that is what Josh Allen is. Josh Allen at his peak is 2017 Wentz. Josh Allen at his worst is like every year after that, Carson Wentz. But, you know, despite Josh Allen going nuclear, had like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, Jalen Hurts said, nah, I'll just give 5 touchdowns and win the game because all I do is freaking win. And I think the refs were, you can't, if you're doing a breakdown of this game, not act like the Eagles got some good calls to go their way. But the most important call, the biggest call of this game went for the Buffalo Bills. That roughing the passer, that was horrific in overtime to extend their drive in overtime to get them in a range to kick a field goal and put all the pressure on the Eagles. That was a gimme call. However, I'm not going to complain about the Eagles getting that call, even though it was bad, because for most of the game, all the calls were going the way of the Eagles. Now, you know, I think we break even, that roughing the passer call for the horse collar, the missed horse collar on Josh Allen. But, you know, refs, hey, that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you get the refs on your side, and I will absolutely take them in this matchup. I'll take them in the matchup against the Dolphins that we had. And I think the argument, just because we got to get it out of the way before we start talking about all the good things Eagles, I don't think it was so much the refs calling penalties on Buffalo. I think Buffalo played a sloppy game. I think that a lot of the penalties on Buffalo were valid. I think much like the Dolphins game, where it was very heavily skewed towards the opposing team, where penalties were called, I think the argument is like, is Philly really playing that clean of a game if the refs are calling the game that tight on one team? Philly's not getting penalties and stuff like that. But I also think that was only really a first half thing. Second half, wasn't a lot of penalties called. I think most of the penalties in the second half were called against the Philadelphia Eagles. But absolutely, when the Eagles were starting out incredibly slow in the first half, Jalen Hurts was very bad. The play calling was very bad. You know, what is it? Which one is? I think it's a mix of both. I think Jalen, with the first say, did not play well in the first half. I think everybody else with a set of eyes could see Brian Johnson did not call a very good first half whatsoever. And while we were struggling, I think in the first half, the penalties going against the Bills was very much beneficial to the Philadelphia Eagles. But second half, I think things were pretty even in terms of all the officials. And I think the fact that the biggest penalty called, the biggest bad penalty called in this game was against the Buffalo Bills. The most impactful penalty called in this game was in favor for the Buffalo Bills. I don't think there's a whole lot you can complain about if you are a Bills fan with this loss, given the fact that, for the most part, your defense, you know, you had a chance to put this game away, and you didn't. You did not, and I think that ultimately just comes, Bills are not a clutch team. They're a very good team. On their day, they could be the best team in the NFL. But for most part this season, they're not a clutch team. And I think that's what we saw here, a reflection of that. And outstanding for the Philadelphia Eagles, 37 points. Second half, lights out. Jalen Hurts, 18 of 31, 200 yards passing, 3 touchdowns and a pick. And a pick's a pick, right? You don't want to sound like a Dallas Cowboy fan defending Dak Prescott. We're like, oh, that interception's not really. Pick's a pick. But interception was deflection. And I mean, some of them may have to actually come back on Jalen Hurts, because that is not the first time he's just thrown it into a guy that's blitzing with his hands up and bad things happen. But it wasn't like Jalen Hurts just over terrible throw or anything like that. It was a deflection, still a pick, but he had 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, the last rushing touchdown in overtime, absolutely clutch. Jalen Hurts does have the clutch gene. I think you have to give him an A+. For how he closed that game, he looked like the most valuable player in the football league. And insane, man. Absolutely insane. DeAndre Swift, 80 yards running, had a couple big runs, big, huge one in overtime. Just re-sign the man. Re-sign the man. I don't know what it's going to cost. I would even say he's done enough here to overpay for a position that Howie Roseman just does not pay for. I think we got to get DeAndre Swift on the books for at least next season. Very clutch player. Probably need to give him the ball more. 14 carries, not enough. Let's shave off maybe 5 of these carries of Jalen Hurts and give them to DeAndre Swift, right? DeAndre needs to be a guy that gets 20 touches a game. I see LaShawn McCoy tweeting it all the time on Twitter saying, get the ball into Swift's hands. I think, I don't know. I don't know why they don't. I don't think he's banged up. Are they worried because he has struggled to stay healthy, like going back to his time in Detroit? Don't know, but I think generally run game was solid here today, even though we could have relied on it a lot more in the first half when we were struggling to find any sense of rhythm with the offense. I give Swift, we'll give him A. I think A is fair because some of his biggest runs and his best runs came when we absolutely needed them, and he was the change of pace. He was that 36-yard run is kind of what sparked the offense going in the second half, and then he had another big run in overtime. So, yeah, we're giving Swift an A. On the receiving side, Devontae Smith, 7 catches, 106 yards and a tutty. A.J. Brown, 5 catches, 37 yards and a tutty. Zacchaeus with that throw by Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, ridiculous. Absolutely, that throw to Zacchaeus was insane. The touchdown to run it in overtime was insane. I'm going to give the receiver. You know what, though? A.J. Brown, it's one of those things. Obviously, we all want to see A.J. Brown go toe-to-toe with Tyreek Hill for the receiving yards leader. But, it's about winning. It's about finding ways to win and doing what's best for the team. And you're not always going to have. And teams are just saying, hey, let's slow down A.J. Brown. That's back-to-back weeks. Devontae Smith has had 90-some yards last week, 106 this week. And it's a pendulum. I think now teams are like, well, Jesus Christ, that's the benefit of having 2 wide receiver ones, because now teams are like, well, can't double team A.J. Brown because Devontae Smith absolutely feasting right now. And I think that it's only a matter of time until A.J. Brown has a big-time performance. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens next week against San Francisco 49ers. Maybe some of the play calling is down to missing Dallas Goedert. That's a huge loss for the offense. It does sound like he's coming back sooner than later. But generally for the wide receivers, couple drops. Rainy game. Like, are we going to fault them too much there? A.J. Brown had a nice drop in overtime, and I don't think whatsoever that was close to a fumble. And literally everyone, the Gene Steratore was like, nope, not a fumble at all. But you're going to have people that complain about that a little bit for A.J. Brown. But I'd say B+. B+ here for the wide receivers. Wasn't a perfect game. Some of them, you can't fault them too much because I do think it does come down to play calling a little bit. But ultimately, made plays when they needed to, touchdowns when they needed to. Zacchaeus with a great catch. A.J. Brown with a tud. Devontae Smith, huge performance. Fine, let's give him an A. Let's give him an A right now. We'll skip the defense for a sec because we got to go special teams. Jake Elliott, 15. That best kicker we've ever had. Best kicker the Eagles have ever had. I know there's got to be some old heads that are like David Akers this, David Akers that. David Akers was not a clutch kicker. Watch the Super Bowl. Watch the Super Bowl. They lost against the Patriots. He missed. How many kicks did he miss? 2 kicks? 3 kicks? Something like that. The only thing he has over Jake Elliott for all-time status is that he's played 7, 8 more years, and Jake Elliott's not going anywhere. Jake, the Elliott, insane kick to make that in the weather conditions to force it to overtime. A+. A+ for the special teams unit. Defense, you're going to see all the yards that Josh Allen had and be like, how can you grade the defense particularly high? But our offense was abysmal. The defense was on the field a whole lot in the first half, and therefore, in the second half, they were gassed. They were, Buffalo had their way. I think it was a solid defensive performance. I thought some of the third and longs were annoying, but I think you also need to toss it up to the linebackers got hurt. Zach Cunningham didn't play the second half, and yet that's still insane. Zach, I think he went out early in the third, and he had 10 tackles, which is insane. He would have had 20 if he played the full game. Zach Cunningham has been very surprising for the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of being a good time player, and I got to turn on dark mode. My eyes are killing me. But I think the defense did a solid job here today, all things considered, because when the offense started getting momentum in the second half, they did give it that drive late for Buffalo to get the go-ahead, but for the most part, they played a lot better in the second half. I think you love seeing Brandon Graham as he became the most tenured, most games ever played for the Eagles, surpassing David Akers to get a sack. That was awesome. I think Bradley Roby made some plays. Jordan Davis was great as a run defender. Jalen Carter was making big plays. Slay didn't really give up anything. Cunningham looked solid. Maybe not Reed Blanks' best game. Had a pretty bad missed tackle on Josh Allen. But I think when you look at the defense as a whole, I think a lot of the plays were more so Josh Allen being one of the best players in the league than it was Philadelphia making a bad play. I think it was just Josh Allen making a great play. You love seeing James Bradbury get an interception, even though he struggled a little bit, had a couple throws get away on him. That there's one that was a one-hop or two. He could have had 2 picks here today, but that's good because someone like James Bradbury, we know he's a good player. We saw what we saw last year. There's no way that it's somehow James Bradbury's only good in a Jonathan Gannon scheme. He's a Super Bowl. That's tough to come back from. It's a morale, it's a chemistry, it's a momentum league, and hopefully James Bradbury can take from that pick and his big plays here today some momentum to play some great football down the stretch. We absolutely need him to do that on the defensive side of the ball. But I think generally the defense, I'll give them like a strong B because they still did technically, you give up what you give up at the end of the day. Struggle on 3rd and long. But in the end, hold to a field goal, got the plays that they needed to, the weather conditions, yada, yada, yada. And I think a B is fair. Now, the last kind of question is with Zach Cunningham getting hurt, does that mean a certain maniac that is available in free agency that reportedly is going to meet with the Dallas Cowboys next week? I think it's viewing a perfect situation for the Philadelphia Eagles. Go, you're not going on that flight. You want to come play for the best team in the league that needs some linebacker help, or do you want to go play for? Honestly, much as we like to shit on Dallas, I think Dan Quinn probably a pretty fun coordinator to play for. That's a very good defense. But if I'm Howie Roseman, I am very quickly making a call because at worst, you're going to want the bodies in there. You're going to want Zach Cunningham. You're going to want Morrow. You're going to want Christian Ellis. You're going to want Shaq Leonard. It can't hurt having him in there in the linebacking core. And if you sign Shaquille, formerly known as Darius Leonard, at some point between whenever they would sign him and the Super Bowl, he's going to have like a turnover or two that's going to decide the game. That is the kind of play. Even if he might be a little bit washed in coverage, I don't know where he's at athletically speaking. Seems like a lot of Colt fans are saying that he is washed, not the same player after the back injury. And come on, it's like J.J. Watt. How many people in your real life, like think of all your dads and your dad's friends and your uncles, have ever hurt their back? It hurts them for the rest of their life. They're always like, my back, and they grow when they get it. It's a tough injury to come back from. We saw it with J.J. Watt. Maybe that's the same with Darius Leonard, but I think it can't hurt at this point to go out and get some insurance back there at the linebacker room, especially ahead of a big matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. Offensive game ball clearly going to Jalen Hurts, who did not look anything like a MVP favorite. Betting odds, that is, if you're not looking at it from a biased take in the first half, and then closed up the game like, he's probably going to win the MVP. So Jalen Hurts gets the game ball offensively. Defensively, yeah. Do we give the feel good and just give it to BG? I actually, if I had to give it defensively, I would probably give it to Jordan Davis. I think Jordan Davis was absolutely immense. Pretty much shut down the run after there was a good running drive there from Buffalo, kind of targeting the Eagles linebackers, the weakness at linebacker. And then Jordan Davis just shut that down. He got hurt on a play that was just absurd, tracking down Josh Allen at 6'6", probably 350 pounds. Freak of nature type player. I don't know. That's my question, guys. Who would you give the game ball to on the defensive side of the ball here today for the Philadelphia Eagles? I would say Jordan Davis when all is said and done. But that just, what a win, man. What a win. That's the kind of win that makes you feel like this team can go on and do something special. Because we have, and it's, what are we, week 11? It's probably too far into the season to say that the Philadelphia Eagles are 10-1 and we haven't played our best football yet. Maybe this is just what our football is. But imagine we play 4 full quarters. If Philly can play 4 full quarters, which it's got to, I'd say it has to happen a couple times between now and the Super Bowl. We're the best. There's no team that can beat us. It's just, that cocky mantra of I truly think the only team that can beat the Eagles are ourselves. If we play like we did the first half, we can't get out of it in the second half, we're going to lose some football games. And that's all on the Philadelphia Eagles. But what a goddamn win. 10-1 in the playoffs. Beat the Chiefs. Beat the Bills. We got the Niners next week. Then we got Dallas. Then we got Seattle. So we got 3 tough games left. But, we can beat anybody. We can beat everybody and anybody. What a freaking win. Let's go, Birds. See you on the next one. Peace out.